All right, it's 10:30. Should we kickstart?
Let's go ahead.
All right. Um, Hi everyone. I'm Michelle. I'm the business development specialist here at Sologic, and today presenting with Brian Hughes, the president of Sologic. And our topic today is how do I gather the right data and evidence for an RCA? Before we officially kick off, I just wanted to do a little plug-in. Brian is teaching a public course in Bellevue, Washington next week. So if you're in the area and looking to advance your RCA journey, join us next week. And we also have a few virtual RCA specialists and RCA master course taking place in May. So in Europe and in North America. So please feel free to join us in any one of those sessions.
That's right. And even if you're not in the area, you should come. Like it's beautiful today. People think Seattle rains all the time, but it is not. It is really pretty. And
We're now finally at the, beautiful weather, the only beautiful season of Seattle.
no, oh my goodness. Now we have to talk afterwards because it's beautiful when it rains too, Michelle. It's not
It's
like,
another scenery, yes.
oh, okay. Well, if it's gonna be green, it has to, a little rain has to fall. There's got to be I think there's a song about that. I think a Led Zeppelin song. I'm sure you know it. Right? Okay, well, let's do this thing so we can all have our weekend and our Friday. So, thank you very much for joining. And we're going to talk about data and evidence today. I am using this picture. Well, I'll talk about it later because it shows up again. So, if you have any questions or comments about this, then let us know in the chat. You can ask questions. Michelle will kind of keep an eye out. I try to keep an eye out too, but she's got a better eye than me, and we'll answer them as we go. So hopefully you enjoy it. I think this is a neat subject. Lots of good stuff here to talk about. So, a little bit about us. We are a full service company focused on organizational learning. So software, training, and consulting. If you don't know Sologic, then that's the stuff that we do. And like Michelle was mentioning, we're doing a class next week. We have virtual classes available, and we'll do them wherever you are. Michelle and I are in the greater Seattle area. I am actually in Seattle proper, and Michelle is over there on the east side. And our headquarters is currently in Midland, Michigan, but it depends. No matter where you are in the world, then we'll be able to help you. We do a ton of different work in a ton of different industries. It doesn't matter what the industry is, it doesn't matter what the problem is. If it's something that you're trying to understand, you're trying to learn a little bit more about, or a lot more about, then certainly we can help out. Primarily, we're going to work in the area of safety, quality assurance, reliability and maintenance, and these other areas as well. So, it's generally the focus of stuff like root cause analysis, but I mean, we will go far and wide, doesn't matter what the problem happens to be. We will, in fact, we kind of like it when we are asked to work on stuff that we're not familiar with. So, in any case, it's a little about us and what we do. All righty. So, let's go ahead and jump into the topic here. I want to set the scene a little bit. So, when you think about Sologic root cause analysis, we're a five-step process. At the front end of that process is gather and manage data, and that's the area that we're going to be focusing on. Just to put that into context, we gather and manage data at the front part of the RCA or whatever the learning event happens to be, FMEA, learning team, etc. That's because we need that data and evidence in order to do what we need to do later on. Things like writing a problem statement. It's hard to do that without data and evidence. Analyzing causes. Well, you can't. I mean, you can, but it's going to be all speculation. We need the data and the evidence in order to do that. And then we build our solutions off of the cause and effect analysis and all of that. The quality of our solutions, the richness of our solutions is going to be purely driven by the quality of our data and our evidence. It all happens up at the front end. And the final step in our process is to write a report that we share what we've learned in the event with others. So, but kind of the linchpin behind all of it is the data. And when you hear, we talk with our clients. Okay. And we asked them, well, what are some of the things that we think that your folks need to work on and that we ought to emphasize in class, really sort of pull forward? And almost every time it's that, hey, we're not doing a good job at gathering data. We're not doing a good job at coming up with good evidence. And so I think it's fundamental. I think that it's a fundamental, I guess, bit of knowledge and a little bit of skill there too, that we've got to have in order for, well, to ensure that we're dealing in the world of fact and that we are coming up with conclusions and understanding that's based as much as we possibly can on things that are verifiable, things that are reproducible, things that are true. Okay, so it's a super important part of the process. And I want to, because I think this is also important. Um, you might not have heard of human and organizational performance before, but some of you have, or HOP for short. I think it's really important for us to put the HOP principles into the mix, especially when we're gathering and managing data. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we dig in. We have a free ebook on HOP and RCA, and I would suggest that you download it, give it a read. It's only 20 pages, it doesn't take too long. Now, I'm going to talk about the concepts in the webinar today, but why I like HOP and HOP principles and including it with RCA is because whenever we have any kind of learning opportunity, it's the ideas and information, data gathering and evidence, but a lot of that data and evidence is coming from humans, from individuals. And if we can have a diverse team of people that are bringing that data and evidence to the party, and we get them and we can get them to communicate and share and learn from one another, and not only that, each one of their brains processing that information in a different way, all together, it makes for a really powerful source of information and human analytical capability that we then apply our process to. And so I think it's crucial that we are taking into account things like error is normal, that we're not looking to blame or punish anyone, that we're looking to systems or context that drive the behaviors of the folks that are there, that we put a major focus on learning and we put a major and that we recognize that our response matters, right? So um, I was just looking at the comments come through. Michelle, I don't have a misspelling, do I? Is there a typo? Maybe you
It's
did.
me. It's me. I
All right,
said
bud.
hope
No.
and RCA, but yeah,
Hope. Hope
it's
and RCA.
thematically relevant. Yes,
Here, let's bring
hope is
hope into.
yes.
We don't want to just hope. We need like more than that. We have to have
Hope for solution and improvements.
and world peace while we're at it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, well, so all this stuff fits together, darn it, and we're going to talk about it in greater detail, and I'm going to focus right here on the data gathering and evidence part. Okay, so let's put this into another bit of context. If you're on my webinars a lot, then you know that I use some of these setup slides every time. Why is that? Well, it's because I like to get everybody kind of hitched up at the same end of the cart so that we're all sort of developing a mental model as we go. So let's look at the anatomy of a problem for just a minute. So problems are purely almost always based around a deviation from our pathway to goal. Okay, so here we are, and here's where we want to be. And we come up with a nice defined pathway or a plan. All right, well, invariably, we end up deviating and having to make alterations in order to actually achieve what it is that we want. Like it doesn't go to plan, whether you're baking a cake or whether you're looking at the causes of generator failure, right? So we're doing our very best to try to keep on path, but what humans are very good at is managing deviation and variation. Most of the time we do a really nice job at it. But sometimes the variation goes way off path. And that's what we mean by a problem that's going to require that we take a little deeper look at it. Okay. So it's different depending on where you're from, right? This sort of you can map this sort of model onto wherever it is that you're from. But just, when you got a significant problem, that's when we're going to be doing root cause analysis. Okay, well, in this case, the one that we're gonna work on for an example today is unplanned downtime is a backup generator. Oh, I changed it. I changed these things right up till the last minute. So it's not in a data center, it's in a hospital. I thought a hospital would be a little more dramatic. So here, we'll change it right there. But data center, hospital, same idea. We've got this backup generator. It didn't work the way that we needed it to. Okay, so I'm going to read the scenario out loud to you and tell a little story time on Friday. All right, I know it's a lot of words. That's why I was going to help you out a little bit with it. Oh, and by the way, it's brand new for me too. So I'm dusting this off for the first time. So you guys are going to be my test subjects here. So here we go. On a stormy Thursday evening, the utility power failed at a regional hospital. The diesel backup generator, designed to start automatically within 10 seconds, did not engage as expected. Battery backups were there, and they powered the essential systems for over a minute before the generator finally came online, causing a disruption to critical care equipment, including ventilators and neonatal incubators. Pretty important stuff. We don't want any gap in service in those things. No patients were harmed, but the incident triggered a formal learning event or root cause analysis. The facilities team launched an internal review. Early explanations conflicted. Some staff believed the generator never started at all. Others said it started, but it failed to transfer the load. A recent maintenance log noted that possible fuel priming issue was there, but follow-up actions were unclear. Further inspection raised suspicion that debris or sludge had been drawn up from the bottom of the fuel tank, possibly clogging the filter and delaying the fuel delivery. And although the generator's control panel was capable of logging data, no one had retrieved it, and the logs were not routinely reviewed. Interpreting the data required specialized software and vendor support, and this delayed analysis during the review as well. All right, so you kind of getting an idea for what's going on here. A little more. Complicating matters, the hospital's alarm system, which should have triggered an alert, had failed silently. Further digging revealed that the server hosting the alarm system relied on a local UPS battery, not United Parcel Service, okay, uninterruptible power supply battery that had been in a failed state for an unknown period of time. No system was in place to detect or report the health of the UPS system. In other words, the battery that they were relying on to keep the system running, the alarm system, was dead and they didn't know it. Okay. And so then it remained in a hidden failure state until they needed it. And then the only way that they knew that that it was in a failed state was that it didn't work when they actually needed it. It's not the way that we want to identify these sorts of things. So there's some other potential clues too. IT system logs, security footage, contractor test records were either unavailable, siloed, or too vague to provide clarity. As the team worked to reconstruct a sequence of events, they found themselves chasing assumptions instead of facts. All right. So that kind of sets the scene for us. But now here's where you all get to interact a little bit. I read the story out loud to you, right? So here we are, got some weather going on, and you've got this regional hospital. Weather knocks the power out. No problem, right? We're supposed to have a backup gen. Well, guess what? Doesn't kick in. And we're not aware of the problem. So we can't. So this is kind of a compounding issue there. And then we're having a hard time finding our data and evidence after the fact. Okay, so what I want you folks to think about, and we're going to use Slido for this. Wait a minute. Okay, remind me later, sucker. Let's see if it'll start up. It wants me to upgrade. I thought I upgraded earlier. All right, so use your phone. This is where you guys get involved. All right, you got to pretend to, you can't just sit on your duffs here and let me do all the work. So get your phone out, you click the QR code, and then you start putting evidence in. I'm going to do it too. All right. So I've got a little box here, and then as soon as it comes up, so I think I want to see, I want to see, I'm not telling you, you guys tell me. And you can do multiples as well. Oh yeah, yeah, good, good, good. Okay, you're doing it. It's not just me. I want to see. Boom. Oh yeah, excellent. Okay, thanks for playing along. This is actually pretty fun. I like Slido. I've used it a few times on the webinars, but I've seen other people use it in sessions. I think it's a neat way to interact. What else do I want to see? Yeah, I'm not telling you guys, otherwise you'll steal my answers. Here we go. Um, cool. Let's see what we got here. You can keep adding to them. I'm going to just sort of scroll through here and have a look. We got expert testimony. That's probably Michelle again. Um, records of drills, pictures, routine checks of battery backup. That wasn't Michelle, by the way. That was me. Documentation for the system, maintenance log for the generator and the alarm system, maintenance logs, SOPs, written roles and response, all of this. Look, yeah, preventive maintenance records. So there's a lot. Let's kind of summarize these. I wonder if I can. Oh, dang it. Okay, I was going to try to copy them. I guess I probably can't, but process for how often the battery should be checked or changed. Interviews with people present at the time of the power outage. Great. Well, you guys are doing some good work here. All of these are pretty, what I would expect to be pretty neat in terms of trying to develop a picture of what went on. Okay, so these are great, and we're going to come back to these in a minute. Okay, so thank you for that. I'm going to move on now to a dictionary definition for what it's worth, but maybe we can level set around what evidence actually is. And the dictionary says, Oxford Dictionary in this case, the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. All right. Well, if we went back to, I don't know if I can. I think if I go back to my slide, oh, yeah, they're still here. So, I mean, would system test records, would they help to validate our beliefs? Maybe we're suspending our belief until we see those system test records, even better, right? So, but if we have, it's hard to not have certain beliefs or certain hypotheses or otherwise, so helping to validate that to decide or help us decide whether or not it's true. So all of this is centered around trying to figure out what are we dealing with here, and do we really know what's going on? Uh, I want to just say that having investigated hundreds of incidents, maybe more, I don't keep track of all of it. Um, I am shocked, honestly, at how often the real story, after we've done our investigation or our learning event, turns out to be quite a lot different than what I thought I would learn at the very beginning. So I have really learned to sort of with almost with a little bit of humor look at my assumptions and then compare the before and after and just be sort of amazed at how wrong I was sometimes or how much I didn't know about the problem when I thought that I pretty much had it figured out. So there's always interesting as you dig in and you test your assumptions and your hypotheticals, you start looking for the evidence that supports them or refutes them, just how different or how much more complete the picture actually is. Now, at Sologic, we are using data sources to help us as I guess, sort of as a process aid or a guide that helps take a little load off our brains or helps trigger our the questions that help us dig into the problem a little further. So we are always looking at people. People are a great source of evidence or information. And when we go back over to the stuff that you all said that you wanted to identify, interviews with people present at the time of the power outage, expert testimony. What else down here? I guess that's pretty much it. But hey, that pretty much covers it too, right? So these folks, people who were involved in the incident, the roles that they play, people that are knowledgeable about the process. One of the reasons that I picked a backup gen system is that 2 weeks ago I was knee deep in backup generator FMEA work, similar to an RCA. And we were looking at all of the possible ways in which a backup generator may fail to come online when we need it to. So it's kind of top of mind. And I'm thinking about my buddy. I think he's my buddy James. Maybe he would say the same thing or maybe not, but I liked him a lot. So hopefully the feeling was mutual. But man, this guy, he has forgotten more about generators than I will ever know about generators. And what's really cool about James is not only does he know a ton, he also is willing to teach. And I've done two different FMEA events with James now, one for diesel gens, one for natural gas gens. And I mean, the guy is just a wealth of knowledge. And we need somebody like James on our team if we can find him, because they're going to give us a ton of different information. All right, but people like James, they're not the only source of info. We need to look at the hardware, software, and systems that are involved. A generator primarily is gonna Scott, let me think here if I can get it straight. I did just do this, so I should have a pretty good understanding. You've got to have a source of backup power. That's going to be the engine. So gas powered, diesel powered, uh, I don't know. Well, natural gas or diesel. I guess gasoline, or there are other sources. Not for our small home like Honda generators, those kinds of things. Those are going to be powered by gasoline. Maybe they can be powered by propane or other fuel sources, right? But the primary two major subsystems involved in the gen are going to be the engine and the alternator. So the engine turns the alternator. The engine, it was a pretty interesting realization. I'm going to take just a little deviation into to power conversion for just a minute. So you got your fuel source, and you basically light it on fire. You basically create explosions in the pistons. Okay, controlled explosions. You direct that energy to turn it into rotational energy, and then what that does is it turns the alternator. The alternator is basically a magnet inside a coil. And as that magnet spins in the inside of the coil, it induces energy and it's so cool because you got your fuel energy, and then as you're using that, you're directing that fuel energy to turn the magnet inside the coil. It's actually converting energy that started out as a hydrocarbon into energy, an energized power line. And it's so what's here is another thing too, and I'll get back up out of Nerdville and we'll get back into evidence. But this is the thing, is that like when you do a deep dive and trying to understand a system, you learn a ton about it, and you develop your own perspective or your own mental models around it. When you think about what an engine is, it's actually a form of alternating power, right? Because each of those pistons are firing at a different point in the revolution. Okay, well, it's converting that to a different form of alternating power, which is the magnet turning inside the coil. And every time the magnet spins, the rotor spins inside the stator, and every time it goes past one of the three coil phases, it induces an energetic wave, which converts one form of alternating energy into another form of alternating energy. And believe it or not, that alternating energy has to be converted into direct current in order to power things like batteries and UPS systems and otherwise. All right, I'm telling you all this, and you're like, dude, get over it. You think it's more interesting than we do. Maybe or maybe not. The point is how did I know this? How did I learn this? Well, I got guys like James that are willing to slow down and teach a perfectly ignorant person like me about how these things work. Not only engines, alternators, UPS systems, gearboxes, automated transfer system switches, um, all of that kind of stuff. And he knows all about that hardware, software, and systems. And then also, we need to understand the procedures and documentation, right? So when we go back over to our Slido file or our Slido page, process for how often the battery should be checked or changed. That's in the UPS system. System test records, documentation, records of drills, pictures. I don't know what pictures have to do, but pictures probably more hardware, software systems. Routine checks of battery backup, documentation for the system, a maintenance log for the Jenny and the alarm system, maintenance logs, SOPs, written roles and responsibilities, documented training. Look, a lot of the stuff that came out of our little word cloud here all sort of fit into this bucket up here: procedures, documentation, training, audits, etc. What's interesting here, and my diagram doesn't really show it, but the people, they're interacting with things like the engine, the fuel system, the fuel filters, the UPS system. They're interacting with those things, and they're doing it via procedures and documentation. They're not just there's a method behind the way in which they interact with these things, and they're doing it in some environment. Now, in this example that we're using, the environment actually played a role, right? It was environmental conditions that led to utility outage, but there are other environmental conditions that we need to consider as well. And I'm thinking strongly about changing this word environment to more context, although I think environment has more meaning on its face for other people. But contextual contributors, contextual causes, if that works for you. All of this stuff, these people interacting with these hardware, software, and systems via procedures, they're doing it in this environment. That environment is a contributor, okay? And we need to understand that. And it's probably true that the environment itself and how well we understand it is really predictive as to whether or not our solutions are going to be long lasting, they're going to be durable, and they're going to be effective. Okay, so all of this sort of conversation that we're having right here comes from I guess a deep dive and a deep desire to know what the facts are for what we're dealing with, and being willing to test our mental models, being willing to test our assumptions so that we are putting them to the test such that we're not jumping to conclusions or solutions. And that, y'all, is kind of where this slide comes from. I love the idea of baking. I love the idea of when you're getting all of your ingredients together, say to make a cake or cookies or something like that. And evidence, that's the evidence of the ingredients for our learning event. All right. So you've got your manuals, your pictures, your expert testimony, your butter. Because butter's always welcome. Come on, let's face it. And the idea here is that like a fresh set of ingredients that, yeah, the ingredients themselves don't make the cake, no doubt. All right, but you got to have them. And the better your ingredients, the better the output's going to be regardless. All right, so let's get some real examples here. I'm going to pull CosLink up. I want to talk about this in the context of an RCA and the software itself. All right, so here I am in CosLink. If you're not familiar with it, you're going to get familiar with this part of it anyway. I'm going to create a new RCA, and I'm going to title it example for evidence webinar. Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to use that template. I'm going to get some more information here, and then I'm going to click create. It takes me, when I use the Sologic RCA template, it takes me right to evidence because it knows that that's the first step in the process. And what we're doing here is, let's talk about evidence in the context of actually running an RCA. In reality, say that we got a call. Hey, we want you to come out and investigate this incident. We had somebody get hurt, or our generator didn't come on when we thought it should. Okay, or we have an environmental excursion. We exceeded our air permit, or whatever it happens to be. All right. The very first thing I do is I grab my notebook, which is no, it's buried in my backpack because I was out of the office yesterday. But where are you? Come here. Seriously, where are you? Maybe I left it upstairs. Anyway, pretend that this is the note that I grab, and I grab a piece of, I grab a pen, and I will immediately make a little plus sign. Can you see that? There it is. And I immediately start asking questions around these quadrants. People goes up in the upper right. I basically do this slide and I ask a question. So what went on out there? All right, well, let's pretend for a minute that this is the story that we heard, the story that I told to you earlier. All right. Now, as I'm writing it down, as I'm listening, I'm writing. I'm listening and writing people, what people are introduced here, or what people do I want to talk to as a result of the story that I'm hearing. What about the hardware, software, and systems? Like, what are the things that I need to know more about? What about process and procedures? Okay, so I'm literally writing it down in that way. What about the environment? So as they're telling me the story, I'm writing the information. That written record then leads me to more formally request, I want a bunch of stuff from you. Okay, if I'm going to take this on, and we always say yes, so we're going to do it. We're going to get a bunch of stuff from them. And then guess where I'm going to put it right here? Interviews. Interview with who? So let's say that I think interview with facilities, maintenance, staff. Okay. And I'm going to log it. Well, I have a place where I can list the evidence quality. It is simple, 1 through 5 stars. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this. Let's say that my interview with the maintenance staff, the facilities folks went pretty well. And I feel like I got a lot of good stuff out of it. All right. Well, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I typically don't give interviews 5 stars. I max out at 4. Why is that? Well, because I'm getting it from a person and I'm leaving room for, even if I believe they're trying to tell me everything about the problem that I need to know, that they left something out, that they always leave something out, that they were incorrect about something, that there's room for improvement. Okay, so I'm not giving them 5 stars, and I do that as a matter of course. But I'm going to do this. I want to look at the how about operations manual? Yeah, operations and maintenance manual. All right, well, that's a form of documentation. That documentation, if I'm getting that from the OEM, that's going to get 5 stars. I That's about as good as it's going to get. Well, what about pictures? Okay, pictures or video. I'll just put pictures for now. I'm going to leave it generic. And so pictures are pretty good evidence too. If they're good pictures, some pictures are crappy. So I want to say that, and I wasn't going to go deep dive into how to take good pictures of evidence, but maybe a little bit just because we're talking about it. Almost everybody has a high quality camera. This is the iPhone. Does this a 12? No, this is whatever the latest is. I just bought it, so I'm getting old. I don't remember what the version is, right? But this is the latest one. Look, I got 3 cameras on the back here. This thing takes insanely good pictures, really good ones, and also it shoots really high quality video. In fact, I'm thinking about getting rid of my Panasonic GH5 video camera because these are so good. I mean, we're kind of at that point. So there's really no excuse not to have good pictures these days. But some tips and tricks about taking pictures hold true. Things like perspective and scale and multiple angles and being able to making sure that it's in focus, making sure that it's well lit. All of those kinds of fundamentals still hold water, right? So but here, so I've got some interviews, I've got operations manual, I've got pictures. Well, guess what? I actually have and let me ditch this. I created a folder, which I always do. I create individual folders and I have subfolders inside those with my evidence and information. Well, so I've got some pictures here. Here, let's open her up. There we go. It's a cat 3516. That's the Jenny that we're looking at. And so even, I mean, those of you that are still paying attention, even when you just look at a picture of it, and this is one I pulled off a website. And I listen, Caterpillar is a great company. I'm making this up. This is fictional. So if someone from Cat is on the line or if this gets back to them, look, I just liked it. I thought it was a good picture of a Gen. I'm sure that your Gen would never fail in this way, but this is the picture that I chose. All right, so now looking at this, like this, all of a sudden now it starts to paint a much richer picture of what's going on. Having a single image, and let me dig into this a little further, and let me make it bigger. All right, so let's go from the right, my right, okay, screen right, and we'll work our way through, and we'll see if we can see some of these things that we're talking about here. The front end, you got your radiator and your radiator fan. Okay, so this is you can see you've got these pipes, you've got hot water and cold water return, right? So the hot water is going to come out of the motor, it's going to go through the radiator. The radiator itself I actually might be wrong. This might just be the fan. There may well be a separate radiator outside the enclosure. Okay, so look, a little bit of I actually don't know. Okay. That's important to me. By speaking it out loud, I I, I am listening or looking actively for what I might be incorrect or where if I'm not sure, like 'cause here's what what I see here. I only see the fan. I don't see all of the fins and all the stuff that you normally see on a big heat exchanger. Okay. So I'm going to have to dig a little bit further. And when I have a question, I write it down. When I have a question in CauseLink, I add it as a task. Find out where the radiator is. Okay. That I log that question over here so I don't forget it. All right. When questions come up, you write them down because you really need to make that effort happen right away. Okay. But now, as I work my way through, here's the engine. On the top, I've got what I'm presuming to be big air filters. Are those air filters? It looks like it because it looks like it can pop those off and open up inside there. And I'm guessing that there are big filters inside there. Normally, too, there's a big turbocharger on these things, but I'm not experienced enough to tell you what the turbocharger or the supercharger looks like. Okay, and that may or may not be an option for this. Okay, so I've got some more questions that are going on here. But I mean, even counting up the cylinders, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Okay, so it looks like I've got eight cylinders on that side. There's another eight on the other side. It's in a V shape, so a V16 shape. Now, all of this, does this matter to our problem? A little bit, or maybe not. But when I'm in evidence gathering state, I want to paint a broad picture. I want a broad understanding of what's happening. We are going to have a very focused understanding later on about fuel delivery systems, fuel polishing, the fuel filters themselves, and the schedule and all of that stuff. But at first, I relax on wanting to know all of the specific details. I know everybody wants to jump in, figure out exactly what happened, but man, it's not been my recipe for success. Slow down just a little bit. Take a minute or two or a couple hours by yourself and try to develop an understanding of the broader context. All right, so here's the motors, but where's the fuel, right? How does the fuel come in? I don't see that here. People that have better understanding of what's going on will probably tell me, "Hey, Brian, you've got water and you got fuel, and you there's a fuel pump, there's fuel filters. I don't actually see fuel filters hanging off of this thing, right? So there's questions that I'm having here. But I know that that's the motor, and I also know that here we've got the alternator. Okay, so somewhere in here it looks like there's a direct drive to the alternator, and the alternator is where the electricity is actually generated. Okay, and then we've got control systems and the interface that's right over here, emergency stop button right there. I'm smart enough to at least know that. So I'm guessing that the operator would come on if they were going to interface with this thing, that this is this HMI and all of that is where they're gonna interface with it. And I got everything right down to the skid that it comes in on and all of that good stuff, right? All from one picture. Well, what else do we got available to us here? It's probably another pic. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's the radiator. Hey, dig this. Okay, so just adding one more picture that helps answer some of those questions because look at that. Now you can see that's clearly the radiator, and that is not present in this other picture. You do have the big fan that's there, all right, but now you can actually see the radiator itself on this other side. See what we're doing here? All right, we're slowly and methodically examining. We are not jumping to conclusions. We are not jumping to solutions for sure. We are in 100% teach me how this thing works mode. Okay. And look at this. This one does have there's a little different setup going on here. Okay. So maybe not the same system. So I would ask my experts, what the heck am I looking at up here? And is this the turbocharger, supercharger system that's delivering air to the engine? All of that kind of thing, right? So what's the difference between these two pictures? Here, I'll move it along a little faster. I see the clock moving. I've got some other pictures too. Yeah, look at that. All right. This is a more complete picture of what the thing actually is going to look like because you do have very clearly your air delivery system. Okay, and you do have a much clearer look at the radiator and everything else. Oh, and dig it. Oh, what do we see right here? We've got filters. Okay. So you've got one larger and three smaller. I don't know what they are, but most likely you got oil filter, and then you've got fuel filters. And these may all be oil filters, they may all be fuel filters, but in any case, this is what these kinds of filters ultimately look like. Okay. At least in the stock photo that I swiped from Caterpillar. All right, so look, there's some other stuff here too I'm going to examine. And let's just pull up one more thing, a couple more things. I actually love this. I think it's so fun. I was never an engines guy growing up. My dad wanted us to learn how to work on engines. We didn't. Now I love learning about all this. The manual. Oh my goodness. Oh, you're probably like, oh gosh, put me sound asleep. No, no, no. You got to deal with this. You got to dig into this and you got to want it. You got to want to read it. Here's why. Because you got a bunch of freaking hospital equipment that could have failed. People's people's ventilation system, the incubators in the neonatal ward. It matters. It matters. And you're the one. If you're doing the investigation, those people don't know that they're counting on you in the future for generator reliability, but they are, and you're working for them. You think about the end state, the people that could be harmed when this thing doesn't come on when it needs to. And what's being asked of you is that you read through what would otherwise be considered to be pretty boring material, but not when you think about how important it is that it functions. All right. Not when you think about how important it is that it's available when it needs to be. And that puts a whole nother twist on it. Okay. So back to Coslink. I've got all of these external files, but I want all of these in here. So look, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to go to the attachments section And right there, I've got a drag and drop target. And what I'm going to do, this is exactly what I do when I do an RCA. I get all my stuff because I ask for a lot of it. And usually I end up with 20 or something files. And then it's all going right there. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to drop it right there. And within about a fraction of a second, now all of a sudden, all of my stuff is in the right place. I do keep an external file like this with all of it, but it's going here. So these images are now, they're now with me and they're with my RCA. Things like PDF documents, there'll be an opportunity for me to pull those down. But here's the ops manual right here. Now I can attach it to my evidence and it is right there. Okay. So now not only do I have my evidence logged, I've got the actual evidence sitting right there with me. Here are my images. Let's do this. I'm going to grab that one. I think I can just drag and drop it. Yep, just like that, right? So I drag these guys over and I'm going to dump them here. And I get my images displayed. And here, let's do this too. Um, I want to come to the chart. There is no chart, but let's just say that Jen failed to start on time. Uh, Here, a little cause and effect charting while you're at it. Whenever I get a deviation like this, I think that it needs to start up within, it had a 10-second within 10 seconds. All right, so goal equals Jen starts within 10 seconds. Reality, Jen required, what was it? This will be account. Like I said, it's brand new for me. So did not engage as expected, but does it tell me, oh, over a minute? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just I recognize the gap here. Require here. Let me type and not talk. Let's keep it in terms of seconds. All right. So I'm gonna turn you off for a minute. Hit a little cause and effect charting technique. When you're expecting something to happen and it doesn't within a certain time frame, put the expectation in branch one, put the actual in branch two. Why did you expect it within 10 seconds? Believe it or not, it's a valid question, but in this case, I'm going to stop that out, terminate. That's my desired state. But down here, why did it require more than 60 seconds to start? That's because I had plugged fuel filters. Fuel, look at me spelling fuel. All right, that's because I sucked up a bunch of stuff from the fuel tank. All right, so and as I'm going through all of this, I'm just going to show you one thing. I do have the fuel filter over here as an attachment. Check this out. I'm going to drag that over. I'm going to put that right there. And because I have it set up to view attachments, okay, look, it'll sit right there in my chart for me. That is literally the fuel filter for this. And so it makes it real simple for us. Imagine that we're facilitating, we're in the charting, we're off and running, but guess what? We're baking the cake, right? But we got all of our evidence right here. And if someone said, "Hey, what was that fuel filter?" Yeah, that was the Donaldson version of the fuel filter. You want to see a picture of it? It's right here. And so we can do other things too. Like if I wanted a web address for, I don't think I still have it up here, but because I was doing all this research this morning. Oh, but here's the UPS system, right? So if you wanted to look at UPS box, this is what that looks like. This one's from Schneider Electric. Look at all, this is all good documentation and evidence, right? But let's say you don't want to deal with all of that. Here, I'm going to just take that. I'm going to grab that URL. I'll bounce back over here and here, let's go back to evidence. I'll do this. And then I'll say UPS info, hit enter. That record will be at the bottom. And then I'm going to do location right here. Hit enter there. So and that's a good chunk of that's a high quality piece of evidence right there. I don't actually have an attachment for it, right? Because I got the URL instead. All right, well. So if someone said, "Hey, I want you to tell me more about that UPS system," or "Hey, I want you to tell me more," do I still have the filter? No, I must have closed. Oh no, there it is. Take it. All right. Well, there's the info on that filter. Hey, Brian, can you take us to the OEM or take us to a supplier for that filter? And we want to dig into that a little bit more. I've even got some other pictures and stuff here. You get the picture. Okay. So when I'm dealing with evidence and information, let me do a quick time check too. It's just like teaching. This is the evidence section in our class, right? The only thing missing is I'm not going to make you work exercises. All right, but let me actually. I'm going to bounce back over here to Cosling or to my presentation because there are a few things that I want to talk about. Let me just also double check and make sure. It looks like there's no questions so far. You're all just either sound asleep or watching intently.
Yeah, it is very quiet.
Well, let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about. We'll go a little bit more theory. I took a loop into. By the way, what you've seen the last, say, 30 minutes, that is me doing RCA on something that actually I'm not. This is brand new. Just wrote it this morning, so it's pretty much what it looks like and pretty much exactly how I utilize the tools that are there. What you're not seeing is I am going to spend a few hours actually reading all that stuff. All right. So let's talk about confirmation bias. Brutal. Um, this is really, really, really important for you to get as a facilitator. You are biased. You are in this very moment. You are. You're not perfect. You are never going to be an impartial judge, and neither are none of the people on your team are going to be either. And none of the people reading your reports are going to be impartial. They're all coming at this with biases. Here, let me just, I'll try to trigger some bias. Airliner crashes into military helicopter on final approach to DCA in Washington, D.C. I'll just say that out loud. All of you have an image of that. All of you have a perspective on that. All of your perspectives are unique and individual and incomplete and maybe even totally wrong. Okay. So it's true with all of these incidents. We have to be so careful of this. It's so hard for us to manage our biases, but it is not impossible. But the best part of that is the first part of this is you recognize that you have them and that you're always using a degree of professional skepticism such that when someone tells you, hey, this is what happened. Oh, yeah? All right. How can we confirm that? Is there some other kind of corroborating evidence that can back up that statement? You're making an assertion that it is that way. And I'll tell you what, experts will say it with expert levels of confidence. And I've got to tell you that that some of the biggest eye-opening experiences in RCAs are when you question what an expert tells you. Now, experts are they're absolutely imperative to the process, but don't take their word at face value, especially if it's critical. Make them back it up. Do it in a way that doesn't, there's a right way to do that. And in other words, we don't want to make them defensive or you don't want to be a jerk, basically. There's probably a more technical way to say it, but try not to be an ass about it. But you also just can't, it's not an excuse for you to just take what they say at face value. You also need to be very careful about jumping to conclusions and allowing other people to jump to conclusions. This is usually, well, there's a lot of reasons why we're hardwired to like system one thinking, for instance, if you're into thinking fast, thinking slow. There was a time when jumping to conclusions could save our lives. Okay. That time is not during an RCA. Slow it down, have other people slow it down as well. Even if they're right, there's no value, there's not a lot of benefit to getting there faster. And there's a ton of risk that you're going to be wrong about it. Also recognize that people and how like take that aircraft incident, right? Airplane. Just think about who everybody wants to blame. They're not blaming the airplane people, right? They're not blaming the pilots. There's a lot of blame focused on what was going on in the helicopter. that is just not helpful. Okay. Even if it's accurate that somebody made an error, think back to if our focus is on learning, we recognize that people absolutely do commit errors. They do. If they're human, they're going to err. Blaming that human is not it's not helping us learn at that stage. Okay. So, in other words, just determining who screwed up and who to basically blame for the problem, and then the learning stops because we have our scapegoat, that's just not what we're doing at all. All right. So, that's where these human and organizational performance techniques and concepts become extremely important. And also, I want to give you some tips and tricks. This will be real quick, but and I'll share all this stuff with y'all later too. I will write a blog on this. I am a couple of blogs behind Michelle, I recognize, but I'll get after it this weekend and try to get caught up. But tips and tricks here. Interviewing people. You want to understand what normal looks like because most of the time you would be shocked. You know what normal looks like? Exactly like what a deviation looks like. It's just that most of the time we handle it. We want to understand normal work. We want to understand how things operate under typical conditions. What does a day in the life look like? Okay? And then for you or for the team working with this system, what does a typical shift or task sequence look like? Why do we care about this? Because up until this event, it looked normal to them. Okay. Looked normal to them. Why did they not see it? Why did they miss it? We need to dig into the way the world almost always looks because that's really important to us. I'm looking at what challenges they may encounter under normal circumstances. What's it like to fly a helicopter along the Potomac River, especially as you approach DCA? There's nothing normal about that, okay? But it's normal for them, okay? What sorts of challenges do they encounter at night? Are there pain points or workarounds, et cetera? Right? So these are it's what this is getting leading to is an understanding of what sorts of things are we expecting people to just deal with successfully every single time. All right. So what weird things do we encounter? Have we seen glitches, delays, or strange behavior from the system? Anything we thought might be a one off but now seems connected, right? These kinds of questions help us dig in and help us keep the focus on learning from people versus trying to figure out if they screwed up and if they did, if we can blame them for the problem. What happened from that person's perspective? What did they expect to happen? Were there signs beforehand that something was off? So all of these things are important. And what these things allow us to do is understand the context. I can't overemphasize the importance of doing your homework, and all of this stuff matters because at the end of the day, when we're gathering evidence and information, what we're trying to do is set the scene such that everything afterwards has a much higher chance of success. So I hope all of that. That's about all I can do in an hour. Okay, so hopefully you learned something. Hopefully, this was valuable for you. And I do want to ask if anybody has any questions or comments at this point. And Michelle, is there anything that you want to promote or anything that we need to
Yes, I wanted to just mention that for our upcoming webinar, 2 weeks later, it was supposed to be the example problem with the Tor helicopter crash. We've switched it around so that the upcoming one would be about problem statement. And the Tor helicopter will be scheduled for end of the month instead. So just a little switch. Both were happening in May. But just in case you were planning to attend, there was a change in sequence.
yeah, but you should go to both. You should bring your friends. It'll be fun. It's a party every other Friday around here, these webinars, except I'm drinking seltzer water, but I actually only drink so I don't interrupt my show.
And then we do have a question. Any tips on info to collect about the environment?
Oh, well, environment or context is so specific, isn't it? So I would say I'm thinking about this example, the hospital example. All right. I've I've been thinking about like big picture, so hospital itself and all the different things that go on in a hospital and all the things that then what how do I think about the hospital as a broader system. And then I think about the backup gen as an asset within that broader system, but you need to understand how it fits into the context. All of this is environment. And you have to cast sort of a broad net, and you have to also recognize that not everything, well, everything's connected, but not everything is relevant. But check this out. Next time you go into a hospital, you may or may not know this, but if you want to know the plugs that the backup gen is powering, they're all the orange ones. So you'll notice that not all of them are orange, but all of the orange ones are things that are plugged in that you want that are mission critical, life critical, that you want on the gen. Those are the orange plugs. So just like that level of environment, and I don't mean just like hot, cold, light, dark. Sometimes, of course, that's very relevant. Wet, dry, etc. In this case, it's a lot more about the environment, the culture, and the cultural context. I think this is where I would be focusing on. And the environment for me is sort of the area of existence in which this all takes place. So I don't know if that was helpful. That's how I think of it. Okay. Yeah. The other thing, and I know we're out of time, but you'll notice in hospitals is that all the plugs look like they're installed upside down. Here, I was gonna show you. I just pulled out my computer plug, so if it goes dark on you, but it looks like the ground is up. That's actually by design. And what was told to me is in case something falls, let's say that the plug's not fully plugged in, and something metal, here I've got a big chunk of brass, falls down and somehow makes contact, it will only make contact with the ground, right? Even if it touches one of the neutral or the hot side, versus this, which will cause a short circuit or a spark. And now you know. Well, now you know what I was told by an expert. I have to go corroborate that. All right, everybody. Thanks a ton.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at our upcoming webinar or
Or,
public course.
or the public course. That's right. And like always, get in touch if you need us. We're always around and we're always happy to help. So thanks, everybody. Y'all have a good
Bye.
one.